My name is Austin Meyer, and I'm a computer programmer, aerospace engineer, and pilot. As well, I wrote a computer program called XPlane. XPlane is a flight simulator that lets pilots practice flying on their personal computers at home so they can then fly their real airplane more safely. As well, people that aren't pilots at all enjoy flying XPlane because they get to enjoy the thrill of flying without all the cost and the risk. About 5 or 6 years ago, I made a special version of XPlane for the Google Android operating system. Just like any app developer would, I uploaded my app to the Google Store so anybody that wanted to could download it and fly it. They did. Some time went by, and then it happened. I was working at a trade show in Wisconsin when I got a call from a lawyer. He told me that I was being sued for patent infringement for putting an app on the Google Play Store. Who was suing me? Google? Well, actually not. I was being sued by a company called Unilock. This is a company I'd never even heard of before. Unilock claimed to own a patent that described the idea of looking up a name on a list on a computer. And since the Google Store apparently looks up your name on a list on a computer to see if you paid for the app that you're launching, Unilock claimed to own the idea of how the Google Store works. And because of this, they were suing myself and a lot of other people too, simply for using the Google Store to distribute our apps. Now, Unilock had nothing to do with the creation of the Google Store. Unilock had nothing to do with the creation of XPlane. I never even heard of them before. But none of that mattered. They were suing me and many other people simply for using the Google Play Store to distribute our apps. Now, at this point, the question you should be asking is, what's in the patent? Does the patent really give Unilock the right to sue people for using an online store? Well, here it is. This exactly is the claim in the patent that Unilock said we infringed on. Computer code executable on an electronic device to prevent unauthorized access to electronic data stored on the electronic device. That's it. That's it. These words do not include any source code that could be of any use to any computer programmer at all. These words do not help me or Google or anyone else design or even use the Google Store. These words just say that if someone else goes to the trouble to actually write a computer program that prevents unauthorized access to data, then whoever has this patent can sue them. This isn't an invention. This isn't a new idea. This doesn't contribute one bit of knowledge to the computer industry. It certainly didn't contribute anything to me. It just says that whoever wrote down these words can sue anyone that actually makes, or in my case, uses, an app store. Next, I looked at the lawsuit. Unilock has been damaged as a result of defendants' infringing conduct described in this count. So Unilock claims they've been damaged by my putting an app on the Google Store. Unilock only files lawsuits for a living. How can they be damaged by some guy like me putting a flight simulator on an online store? I tried to figure out how Unilock was damaged by looking at their lawsuit, but they never really seemed to specify exactly how they've been hurt. I called a lawyer. I told him to have the case just tossed out because of its obvious absurdity. What the lawyer told me next sobered me. He said that it would take about 3 years of my life and $3 million to defend myself. And at the end of it all, I'd be put on trial in front of a jury in the outskirts of Texas that would decide my punishment for putting an app on the App Store. I live in South Carolina. How could I be put on trial in front of a jury in the outskirts of Texas for committing the sin of using the Google Store to distribute my app? It was at this moment that I realized that I'd entered the most terrifying mess of my life. What I'm about to tell you is shocking, and I'm inviting you to come with me on my journey to uncover the patent scam. First thing I want to know, who's behind all this? I hit the net to find out.
Who is Unilock? Controversial patent lawsuits. What does this company do? Unilock patent infringement. A dozen lawsuits filed just last week? Let's check out their website. Members only. Maybe there's something in their source code. Oh, there it is. Patent it, commercialize it, reap the rewards. Who owns this company? The Marathon Patent Group? They're not inventors? They just own patents? And they're traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange?
What's a patent troll? So what is a patent troll anyway? My first trips were to go talk to the experts and find out for myself.
Patent trolling is the practice of taking patents and using them to sue or threaten to sue others. It's not then taking those proceeds and using it to create the next greatest technology, but it is basically building a business out of suing or threatening to sue.
Unfortunately, patent trolling has become a lot more common in the last 10 years. Last year, patent trolls sued about 3,600 companies, and there were hundreds of patent trolls active in the federal court system. The estimates vary, but they generally come over $10 billion a year.
The vast majority of plaintiffs are not inventors. They're people who have purchased patents for nothing from bankruptcy estates of failed companies, or they've just purchased patents for very little, and their sole goal is to make money by suing people. It doesn't even matter if the patent actually should never have been granted. The cost of invalidating a patent is so high, of defending yourself in a patent litigation lawsuit is so high, that almost everyone ends up having to write a check.
Almost everyone ends up having to write a check. What kind of check are we talking about here? Well, as it turns out, the average settlement that a person has to pay to a patent troll to make the lawsuit against him stop is $340,000. That's right, the average person is forced to pay the patent troll $340,000 just to end the lawsuit, because they don't have the $3 million to defend themselves. When I tell people about my lawsuit, they always say the same thing. They say, hey, Austin, if Unilock says the Google store infringes on their patent, why don't they just sue Google? Oh, let's think about that for a moment. If they sued Google, I think Google has $3 million. Google can defend itself and probably, over years, win. But if Unilock sues as many people as possible that use Google, then think of how many people they can sue that don't have the $3 million to defend themselves. Those companies will be forced to settle, even if they've done nothing wrong. And once it became how obvious it is to make easy money by filing these patent infringement lawsuits people can't defend themselves against, you can pretty much figure out what happened next. Companies like Unilock were formed. Companies that exist only to file lawsuits. Now, here's just how far it can go. Unilock, the company suing me, is owned by a much larger company called the Marathon Patent Group. The Marathon Patent Group does not make anything. They don't invent anything. They just sue the companies that do. And the Marathon Patent Group is traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange. That's right. The NASDAQ stock exchange was designed to foster innovation. And now the NASDAQ hosts the Marathon Patent Group, a company whose only function is to sue. And it's all based on holding a patent. So, are these patents brilliant? Well, let's take a look at some. These are real patents.
Method of video gaming over the internet. Method for voice communication with an entity such as a plant. Snowboard training apparatus. Animal ear protectors. Forehead support for a urinal. A hose to breathe from a toilet bowl. A reality alternate method. A domestic animal telephone. Method to search for event photos on the internet. self-hair cutting apparatus, an anti-eating face mask, method of swinging sideways on a swing, exercising a cat with a laser pointer, self-defense weapon key holder, apparatus to simulate a high five, dog nose art apparatus, a bib for use while operating a motor vehicle, a buttocks kicking apparatus, a stick that a dog can fetch.
This all seemed just too crazy for me to actually believe. I had to talk to someone who was experienced in this. I found a guy by the name of Kevin O'Connor. Kevin's developed and sold companies worth billions of dollars, and he was also being sued by a patent troll, so he knew his way around the block. Kevin was sued simply for making a website that scans large numbers of products and then shows you the one that's best for your needs. So, Kevin, I'm being sued for patent infringement.
That's too bad.
It is not fun. Let's hear your story.
So in summer 2013, we get this letter from a law firm, and it says we're violating their patent. And they claim to have the patent that facilitates bilateral and multilateral decision making. It's been around since caveman days. It's baffling how anyone could have a patent on that. I mean, it's basically decision making, dating all the way back to probably Neanderthal days. People deciding whether to trade chickens for cows. I mean, it's basically how humans interact or communities interact with each other. They had the patent on it.
Okay, so you got the letter. What did the letter say?
The letter basically said they got this, it's called the demand letter. They said that they've got this patent. They believe we're infringing in it. We can settle now, or we can go through prolonged discovery. We're going to have motions in the court. You're going to have to incur lawyer fees. You know, the more this goes on, more expensive it's going to become for you.
Once you got this lawsuit, what'd you do?
I mean, the first thing you do is you research the hell out of it. You're trying to figure out, you know, one, is this a valid patent? Who's behind it? Who else have they sued? We did a lot of research. They kind of picked on the wrong company. You know, we have one of the largest knowledge graphs in the world. So we did a lot of research on who is behind this. Who are these lawyers? Who are these inventors of this patent? And we found a pattern. We found a very disturbing pattern. It was basically there's these two people. We believe they met in Harvard Business School, Eileen Shapiro and Stephen Matz, that had. They were not technologists, but somehow mysteriously they had I think it was maybe 10 technology patents. You never know who's behind these shell companies. In our case, it was LumenView Technology, not sure who's behind it, but there was a series of these shell companies that were prosecuting these portfolio patents. And they were very, very aggressive. Once we learned all that, I was pissed. I was so pissed. I knew we didn't infringe. I knew we could win. It really just came down to money.
How many dollars have you put into this so far?
We got $350,000 to $400,000 invested in this.
And 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's still not over.
No, it won't be over for, I don't know how long, another year and a half.
How much more money are you going to spend?
Well, I committed $1 million, so I'll keep fighting it.
All right, so I'm being sued by a patent troll right now for using the Google Play Store. I've been in this now for about 4 years, and there's no end in sight. What do I do?
I get asked this question a lot. Are you rich? So I guess the big question is, can you afford the pain? So your lawsuit is a particularly absurd case, which is you're being prosecuted not for developing technology in violation, you're simply using someone else's technology. As consumers or businesses, we use thousands of technology products that could at any moment be in violation of thousands of different patents. I mean, anyone is at risk. And what kind of legal system is when anyone could be guilty of patent infringement at any given time and their lives destroyed? I mean, really? Is this the kind of society that we want to live in? This is just terrible. This is a travesty.
So what do I do?
I tell most people, I mean, you're a little deep into it. I tell most people to settle. It's not worth it.
Why should I settle when I know it's the wrong thing to do?
You know, ask the guy that owns the liquor store why he pays $100 for protection and not take a bullet in the head, right? I mean, the right move is to take a bullet in the head, stand up to the extorter. Smart move is to pay $100, get the protection. I've thought a lot about this problem, just trying to figure out, like, how do you pull people together to go after them? You know, how do you build some kind of deterrence system? It's complicated. Fighting one off, I'm not sure that's the solution.
Fighting one off isn't the solution, and settling involves encouraging them to do it again. What's left?
I've gotten to learn the way they legally operate and set up money and go after people. It's a very asymmetrical fight. It's kind of like terrorism, where they can come in. It costs them $400 to file a lawsuit against me. It cost me $2 million to go call their bluff. No one calls their bluff. Very few people ever call their bluff. So it's a brilliant, brilliant strategy. And for them, no downside whatsoever.
For you?
For me, it's nothing but downside. I think a lot of these patent trolls are sociopaths. They know the damage and the carnage they create in society. They just don't give a shit. They don't care. It's the almighty dollar. It gives greed a bad name. An idea is not private property. You can't own an idea. It's not possible. You can't own a concept. Look, I've been inventing for 40 years. My belief, ideas are cheap. Turning a good idea into a successful product and company, that's really, really hard. What the patent office has done is completely put everything on its head. They're putting all the value in the idea, and they're making it extremely expensive for people like us that are trying to improve the world by actually creating products and services that benefit others.
So that's Kevin's story, and I'm starting to see the tip of the iceberg in this ongoing national disaster. The lawsuit against me has been dragging on for about 4 years now, and there's no end to it in sight. I've watched my daughter grow up from age 1 to age 5, always under the threat that I'd have to turn over my savings for her future to a lawyer that's suing me for using the Google store. This has cost me time that I will never get back. But, am I the only one in this wretched situation?
Coming out of college, I knew that I wanted to be a programmer. I knew that I wanted to create applications that people enjoy, people wanted to use every single day.
So the idea for Ditto really came from watching thousands of people try to buy glasses in the real world, and we realized they were really struggling. You know, that's really what kind of made this exciting. Like, we felt like we were really solving a consumer problem.
Well, I started it in my basement in 1997 with 2 other people.
It was basically just, I wanted to stop annoying my friends sending them emails all the time, so I thought, you know, I'll just put all this on a website and they can come check it out when they want to.
Okay, time out. Just wait 1 second here. This guy is Drew Curtis, and he runs a website called Fark.com. He was sued for posting news at his website. Okay, now I'm gonna reach the patent. Writing 3 key messages. Purpose, answer the question, why should I be interested in this? Guidelines, 2 to 3 statements that support the headline and entice the reader. For example, answer the question, why is this news? Present facts or statistics or other evidence to show why your story is important or interesting. The statements don't necessarily have to relate to each other, but must support the headline. 30 to 40 words in total per highlight. That's it. That's the patent. That's the patent that the patent troll used to sue Drew Curtis for posting news at a website. All right, sorry for the interruption. Back to the movie.
And so I kind of flipped over a napkin and started drawing it out. It was just an exchange of economics for power. The day my brother got back from Afghanistan was the day that we actually went live. And we sold out. We sold out. We did this at a nightclub here in Chicago, and it sold out in about 17 minutes.
We had a lot of fun. My wife and I worked hand in hand, and we were the first photographers in the events. We've gone to lots of great places. We photographed lots of great people, captured memories for them.
Running my own business definitely made me happy. It was something that I always wanted to do, and just having the ability to be creative and share your creativity with the world was something that I think everybody wants to do.
Eventually, one of my apps, White Noise, became extremely popular. It even became the #1 app on iTunes. And that's when I was able to focus on my startup full time.
I was able to watch folks who came in as interns from college grow into senior managers in the organization. It was almost like getting to be a parent or at least an uncle.
It's been the best thing ever.
When you're building something and the first customers say, like, wow, that really helped us, there's no greater feeling.
It was December 31st, 2013, and I was with my family ringing in the new year, not knowing what light ahead of us. And we had champagne glasses in our hand, and at 12:04 a.m., my email lit up on my phone from a patent attorney. Saying, I see you've been sued for patent infringement, maybe I could represent you.
All of a sudden on 9/11 in 2013, I receive a demand letter. The demand letter basically stated that I infringed upon a patent, and it didn't tell me how or it didn't tell me why. It just says, we believe that you infringed upon this patent, and if you do not cease and desist, we're going to sue you.
In February of 2012, and I remember it very clearly. A letter came in the mail saying, Dear Dr. Vicinanza, we understand that you have certain technologies, in particular network-based scanners, that we feel infringe on our proprietary patent. And therefore, we suggest that you call us so you can arrange to get a license to use your equipment.
Yeah, we've been in business for about 10 years when I got hit by a patent troll lawsuit in 2011, out of nowhere. So it was somebody who's claiming that FARC and Reddit and AOL and 6 other companies were infringing on a patent of theirs. Essentially, it involved emailing press releases to people.
I got a curious phone call from an attorney. That claimed that I was infringing on their patent.
It was a lot of jargon and nonsense, and then a bunch of claims. And one of the claims was if you scan a document to an email, that's protected under this patent. What the patent said we were doing wrong was taking a document, putting it on a scanner, and pressing a button, and having that scanned to an email.
The demand letter said nothing about what we were infringing on. Nothing about what we were doing wrong or what they were even trying to claim against us.
So this is usually what you get. This is a demand letter. And it usually comes with a lot of paperwork. These are, 4 patents here. And they basically say, you're violating something here. 1 or more of our patents you're violating. A lot of times they don't even tell you. In my case, they actually illustrated where they think I'm infringing on their patent, and it's right here. When you click this button, it opens Apple's App Store. And that's it. That's all it is. A button that goes out to the internet and opens up iTunes. And that's $1 million lawsuit? Really? It says right there, storing results of a two-way interaction to a central location. That sounds like using the internet. Later, I discovered I was not alone and that many other small businesses have been targeted and sent these demand letters. And they all say pretty much the same thing. They reference a few patents, and then they claim they want to get a licensing fee from you. If you don't pay them a licensing fee, they're gonna take you to court.
Okay, so you've seen some pretty absurd lawsuits here. But now, it's time for the mother of them all. Unilock, the company that's currently suing me, was also suing a company called Rackspace for selling Linux computers. Unilock's excuse for the lawsuit? That Unilock held a patent that described rounding numbers when doing math. This because Rackspace's Linux computers rounded numbers when doing math. When someone is sued for doing math, I pretty much want to talk to them.
We've been accused of running Linux. Because the Linux kernel does math, it rounds up or rounds down, they said we violated their patent. You know what happens when you have a phone and it rotates like that? We've been accused of having a free mobile app that rotates on your phone. We have an accusation right now that we send email. We have been accused of selling cloud computing services. They said, if you charge somebody money for providing a computing service that violates our patent.
So you may notice that Unilock's lawsuit against Rackspace was for selling Linux computers. Why Linux? Think about it, and the answer becomes clear. If they were to sue Rackspace for running out time on Apple or Microsoft operating systems for rounding numbers, any jury would just laugh it right out of court. But when they choose Linux, that's an operating system that most jurors just don't know much about. Turns out, Linux rounds numbers just like Apple and just like Microsoft. All the operating systems work on the same computers. But by choosing Linux, Unilock introduces just enough doubt to stand a chance of succeeding. And it's that tiny little seed of doubt that drives the entire lawsuit.
They don't really care that their interpretation is ridiculous on the face of it.
And the trolls don't even care how nonsensical or irrelevant their patent is.
The thing about these user suits is that we're all now users of technology. So that's why you see folks who are angry about patent trolls, not only including tech companies, but retailers, your mom and pop store down the street. If you have a scanner in your house, do you? Do you have Wi-Fi in your house?
Absolutely.
Do you have a smartphone in your pocket?
Of course.
Okay, so those things make you a target for a patent lawsuit because you are using the technologies which are at stake. But historically, patent holders won't go after users because they don't want to sue their customers. The thing about patent trolls is they don't have customers, so they can go after folks without worrying about their reputation in the marketplace.
When I received the demand letter, most of the screenshots were of Apple's App Store. Well, I'm an end user of that technology. I didn't invent that technology, I'm just using that technology. But they're claiming that end users are violating their patents, even though Apple has a licensed patent, even though Apple says their developers are not infringing. It doesn't matter to the patent troll.
It doesn't matter.
If they can pin that interpretation in any such way, then they force you to respond because their point is not to win. Their point is to make you spend money. If they can make it more expensive for you to prove that you're right than it is for you to pay them off, then 99 out of 100 people will just pay them off and go about their business.
And every one of these people are coming in and running around and saying, well, Newegg could not have succeeded but for my patent, which is utter bullshit. Right? None of our developers or software developers had ever referenced any of these patents, for example, on the online shopping cart when they coded for that functionality. Every website that in America that's an e-commerce website has a shopping cart.
You know what I say in our company? Ideas are cheap. I have an idea every day, I'm not going to go patent every one of them.
This law firm that sued me had absolutely no value to add to my business. They were only trying to extract money in exchange for agreeing not to sue me, which I call extortion.
Pay money to not be sued? Well, so what if we do get sued? This'll never stand up in court. Of course, we do have to pay our defense fees.
There are hard costs that are already tremendous and tragic and ridiculous. They count on the fact that most companies can't manage their legal defense, and they have to basically end up paying far, far more than what the plaintiffs are asking for. And so those plaintiffs will very cleverly, they'll price below the cost of defense.
A patent suit generally costs $1 to $2 million to defend through to judgment.
So in 2011, when I gave my TED Talk, they were estimating that the cost of defending a patent troll lawsuit was about $1.5 million.
The legal expense of defending yourself against a patent trolling lawsuit can be in the millions of dollars. And a lot of times the patent trolls are picking on small companies that they know cannot afford to go through the whole legal process.
We probably spent about $3 to $4 million.
So far, I would estimate that the legal fees have been in the millions. And I think we're talking about several million more before it's all said and done.
My small company couldn't afford that, and they knew that.
It would be $500,000 or up to defend against a patent infringement lawsuit.
And how much money did you make in the year leading up to the patent infringement lawsuit?
We made about $30,000 profit in 2013.
Every case that's been brought against us so far has been by MPEs where there was no product for us to buy or no service out there in the market that we could have bought. We should fight, and we do, with what we have, but we don't have that much.
For me, hundreds of thousands of dollars is a lot of money. It was more money than we spent on the entire app.
So what'd you do?
We scraped together a little bit of money that we could get a hold of. We emptied our 401k, and we paid our attorney enough to get the job started.
The lawyers, the first question they ask you is, how much money do you have? And since I didn't have anywhere near $1 million to $3 million in the bank, I was laughed off the phone. And some of them were extremely rude.
When we got the lawsuit, we knew we immediately had to make some very hard decisions. So I actually held a meeting, and I told all of my employees, I said, everybody's getting laid off. I'm going to move the office back to my basement, and I'm going to try to do everything myself. And I figured by the end of the year, we might be out of business.
I had planned to hire another couple employees that year, and I wasn't able to do it.
You know, I laid off 7 people, most of whom were engineers.
I lost employees. I had to get rid of them so I could finance the litigation.
You have to learn a lot about the legal system, so I can't tell you how much time I've wasted on this. Time I could have been focused on my own products.
Last month, I probably could have hired 20 people, except for what we're spending on patent litigation. And
instead of spending 18 hours a day running my business like I normally do, I had to instead spend that trying to figure out how to fight this lawsuit. It took up 100% of my time for the better part of a year.
I probably spent 60 or 70 hours a week doing litigation activities. In those first couple months, what I should have been doing was finding new customers and growing our business and signing up new eyewear manufacturers to our site.
Well, the business ground to a halt. Every resource, financially as well as my mental resources and my time, were focused on what were we going to do next? How were we going to survive?
We had to stop growing basically in order to deal with this.
Everything on the business side was derailed.
Not only am I trying to run a business, I'm trying to run a business plus deal with lawyers and looking up, doing research on the patent and the patent troll, and coming up with responses. So yeah, it did take a toll. It was a tough time for us all.
They want you to make it so painful to fight them that you just give up and you pay them off.
And even my boys, they knew that their dad was tied up with this, that my mind was elsewhere, and we consider 2014 a whole year lost.
Overall, yeah, I would say it had an effect on my kids. They missed their dad for about 3 months.
My oldest son, who was 8 at the time, was listening in on all our conversations about strategy. And at one point, he tried to help, and he says, "Daddy, I know what you need to do with this guy." And I go, "What?" He goes, "You should kill him."
These trolls don't just ruin people's businesses. They ruin their lives and their families. And if you settle with the patent trolls, you're just encouraging them to do it to you again. Or to do it to someone else.
Which lawsuit?
The first one.
It's still not resolved.
How long is it going to go on?
It could go on several more years.
It can go on forever. It can go on for your entire life.
The patent troll needs to make it as difficult for you as he possibly can, so you will finally just give up in exhaustion and settle. One of the ways he does this is a process called discovery.
They will bleed you dry in the discovery process. They will ask for fountains of information, and it's a very intrusive process. We're talking email records, financial records, bank statements. The list goes on, and they don't really need this for their case. They just want you to pay a lot of money and a lot of time.
That's how they bleed you. They bleed you, bleed you, bleed you.
Show us the hundreds of thousands of emails that have been sent back and forth between you and investors and anything that has to do with how you created this idea. And then we'll take a look later and determine whether or not you're infringing. It's cheap. It's cheaper for them. If it was made more expensive for them, perhaps they wouldn't do it. But they know it's expensive for me.
It's very similar to, what if somebody broke into your house in the middle of the night and you have to sit there on the couch while they argue with the cops over how much of your stuff they can take when they leave?
So the person being sued has to reveal everything about his own business. what does the patent troll have to reveal about his?
It basically created, again, a huge imbalanced burden on defendants. Plaintiffs have no documents or records to turn over, right?
Why don't the plaintiffs have any documents or records to turn over?
Because they're shell companies.
Patent trolls are just shell companies. They don't make anything, they don't produce anything, they don't have employees. It's smoke and mirrors. You don't even know who's suing you. You have no idea. You don't know anything. They've thought of every single angle, and you can't win.
The company that sued us was nothing more than a couple lawyers that were in a room in East Texas that thought they could make some money. In one case of a friend of mine now, they won. The judge actually said, this is actually insane and you're owed all these punitive damages, but it was a non-practicing entity. They have no assets. So then they just throw up their hands and say, sorry, we don't have any money.
You get $1 million judgment against a shell company and they go, okay, poof, we're out of business.
So that's what a shell company is. It's an empty shell put together just to hold a patent and no other assets. As the money comes into the shell company, the patent trolls funnel it down into their own pockets. So the shell company itself never achieves any value. For the patent troll, there's no risk. Because he has no business, he has nothing to lose. Let's examine one of these shell companies. You remember our friend Steve Vicinenza?
In order to use my $200 scanner on the network, I would have to pay them $120,000.
But who are we paying this $120,000 to?
The patent troll was an entity called Project Paperless.
Project Paperless? Yeah, that's a shell company. But who are they suing? Well, it turns out there's a directory called the best businesses to work at in Atlanta. The businesses on that list were the ones that were sued for using scanners. The best businesses to work at in Atlanta. Clearly, businesses with good morale, happy employees, a decent stream of money. They're the perfect fruit to pick, right for the taking by patent trolls. What law firm would go and ruin these people's lives like this? Turns out, it's a law firm called Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton. Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton demanded that each business that used a scanner to scan a document to an email pay them $1,000 for each employee in the company that used a scanner. If the companies didn't pay, then Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton would sue them, and the victims would be looking at $3 million in legal fees. Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton's excuse for this nonsense? That they were representing a client called Project Paperless. So who is this Project Paperless anyway? A little more research found that Project Paperless was just a shell company, which in turn was owned by 3 more shell companies. And the people that set up those shell companies? 3 guys by the names of Stephen Hill, Douglas Kirscher, and Scott Wharton. Sound familiar? The very lawyers that were filing the lawsuits. The supposed victims that the lawyers were representing were just shell companies created by the lawyers themselves. Imagine going to a lawyer and saying that you want to sue people for using scanners, but you don't want anyone to find out who you are while you're doing it. And the lawyer then saying, oh, okay, that's no problem. We'll just set up dummy corporations for you to hide your identity while we sue everyone in the best workplace directory in your own hometown. Well, that's exactly what Stephen Hill of Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton of Atlanta, Georgia did. The address of one of the shell companies, by the way, was a condo in Florida, owned by a friend of one of the lawyers. One of the businesses they demanded money from, by the way, was a company called Cobb Pediatric Therapy. Cobb Pediatric Therapy is a business that helps disabled children. When they got their lawsuit threat from Hill, Kirscher, and Wharton, they had to promise Stephen Hill that they would never again use a scanner to scan a document into an email. That's what Cobb Pediatric Therapy had to do to make the lawsuit threat against them stop. So now, whenever disabled children come into Cobb Pediatric Therapy to get help, Cobb Pediatric Therapy cannot help the children as effectively as they otherwise would because they are not allowed to scan their documents into emails. So this to satisfy the lawyers. So now, we have the latest commandment from the lawyers. Thou shalt not scan! All the lawyer has to do is manufacture a victim that holds a patent that describes what we all do every day. Once he's done that, he just starts sending out the lawsuits to the best business places to work at in Atlanta, for example.
In the demand letter, they actually showed a screenshot of my app, and they referenced a hyperlink, and they said that is in violation of one or more of their patents. A hyperlink, you know, the thing you click on the internet, that is basically the backbone of the World Wide Web. That is not patentable, and you should not be able to abuse the court systems and drag small companies like mine on such a simple concept. And here's the problem is, what do you do at that point?
So what do you do? I'm being sued for something equally obvious. What are my options?
It's very difficult to say what a company should do when they're sued by, particularly say a patent troll, because the choices are all bad.
And so then he told me we had a couple of options, and one of those options was to kind of settle out of court, in which case I would have to give up some type of royalty fee or some type of payment.
Most companies have to settle because they can't afford expensive litigation. And those companies that do settle, it's like blood in the water. Other patent trolls see that. They see that you're willing to pay to get out of the lawsuit, and they're gonna come knocking.
But when I got into the weeds and started talking to more lawyers, I understand that this is just what trolling is, and they sue a bunch of players in the same day. And you know, most of them advise me, hey, this one you can settle, and most likely you can settle it for slightly less than it would take you to win in court.
The way this plays out for us is that, you know, we're not one of the companies so big that they leave us alone because they're afraid of our legal budget, but we're not so small that they ignore us because they think we can't write a check. We're right in the middle where, you know, they know that we can't afford to keep fighting forever, and I feel like they leverage that to try to get settlements out of us. But the next year we're still gonna be a middle-sized company, and we're not venture-backed, so we're gonna continue to get hit, and it's gonna continue to be draining for us.
And we went from never having had a patent lawsuit at all to having one come up every couple of months, what we call repeat business. We started to get people who would come after us again and again, and when we saw that, we realized this is just paying off the bully. This is not something that will change.
So I actually went to mediation, and for the first time I met, the plaintiff. I saw his face, and I met this person in front of a federal mediator. The mediation wasn't a mediation at all. I got into a room with my attorney, and these guys made some more demands. And the demand was, look, we may or may not win this case. We may or may not win this appeal. But what we are going to do, as soon as this appeal is over, is we're going to sue you with a different patent in our patent portfolio. And we're going to start this all over again. And you're not going to be able to fight because we know you're running out of money. Is we're going to sue you with a different patent in our patent portfolio. And we're going to start this all over again. That scenario, I tend to mitigate risk as an ex-banker and ex-pilot. That scenario I didn't even see coming.
Why isn't the national media all over this? Well, now it's time for our next step down the rabbit hole. So when these people settle, can I go ask them all about the settlement to find out what happened to them?
You can ask what people settled for, but you generally won't get an answer.
So it turns out that when you settle, as opposed to come to a trial judgment, the settlements have other terms in them, and one of the terms is always non-disclosure, which means that if I pay you to go away as a patent troll, I'm not just paying you, I'm also giving you my silence. They always ask for that.
9 out of 10 times, the first thing that the patent troll asks you to do is to sign a non-disclosure agreement. In my case, they would not even tell me which specific claims we were infringing on unless I signed a non-disclosure agreement.
So we've been approached by numerous patent trolls in the past, and unfortunately, because I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, I'm not allowed to really talk about the specifics or what happened.
The specifics of the lawsuit are covered in a non-disclosure agreement as part of the settlement agreement, so I really shouldn't talk about anything specific, like who sued me, how I was sued, or the specifics of how I infringed upon a patent that I really can't even talk about.
I just don't want to talk about current things, but I can talk about what generally we've been accused about.
Yeah, I can mention that I am in ongoing cases, but we're not going to mention names and we're not going to mention, yeah.
What law firm was it that sued you?
I really can't say.
What was the name of this company?
I am not going to talk about that.
Who were the lawyers that were doing this?
I can't disclose that.
What truly makes me sad is to think about the people who are silenced. Silence is a part of the agreement.
Did this troll ever offer to settle with you?
We did end up settling this case.
For how much?
We have not disclosed that.
Are you allowed to disclose it?
No.
Why not?
I don't want to get into that. Can we turn this off for a second?
Turn it off. Tell me about the success that you've enjoyed from the products you've brought to market.
I'm not able to discuss that.
Why?
Because sometimes, man, hold it a second.
Okay. Can you tell me?
They can actually, anyway.
Can you tell me if anyone else is taking credit for your work?
It's probably better that I not discuss that.
They're not even allowed to tell anyone what happened to them. And as a result, the problem can never be made public and solved. What court would even allow this?
It's mostly in Texas. Unfortunately, there's one particular district, the Eastern District of Texas, that is perceived as being very favorable to patent owners, and over 1,000 patent troll lawsuits are filed there every year.
Why do they pick Texas?
It's a number of reasons. The patent trolls pick Texas because they believe that the juries there are friendly to patent owners. They pick Texas because they believe that the local rules of practice are favorable to patent owners and make defending a case very expensive. And they pick Texas just because it's far away from a lot of the people getting sued, and that alone creates financial pressure because it's a distant and inconvenient forum.
So the place in Texas, is it like someplace right inside of Dallas where we come to DFW and get right to work defending ourselves?
The Eastern District of Texas is to the east of Dallas, and the courthouses where most of the patent litigation are taking place are in Marshall and Tyler, which are smaller cities getting closer to the Louisiana border.
So tell me about the computer industry that happens in Tyler, Texas and Marshall, Texas that make them such a good venue for these lawsuits where we know we can get knowledgeable juries.
The Tyler and Marshall, Texas are not centers of the United States technology development. They're more known for the litigation itself, and they've actually created a large industry of litigation support and a lot of work for the lawyers there, but I don't know of any large technology companies that are actually creating products out of these cities.
Most of the time, particularly when you're dealing with these patent trolls, you're not dealing with a real business. You're dealing with something that is a post office box somewhere in Tyler, Texas.
We actually got sued again, this time from a non-practicing entity out of East Texas, where they all come from.
The most shocking thing was finding out that there's the East Texas District Court, where a lot of patent cases are filed. No businesses are located in East Texas except patent trolls, right? Why? Because that jurisdiction is most sympathetic for patent trolls, and it's very expensive for businesses to go and litigate there. It's a cottage industry for the entire city. So all the jurors are corrupt. You know, all the people that work for the courts are corrupted by this patent troll industry.
Could this even be true? I quickly found a website that laid all the figures out, and the statistics were staggering. 44% of all the patent infringement lawsuits in the entire country are being filed in one tiny, isolated district of Texas. And 95% of those cases are filed by non-practicing entities. Companies that invent nothing, they just file patent lawsuits. Now I was onto something. I signed up for an insider analytics site called Lex Machina and did a search of all the patent lawsuits being filed in the US. And I started to see something very peculiar. The same name kept appearing on a huge percentage of these lawsuits. William Ellsworth Davis III. His name is listed as a lawyer in 419 patent infringement lawsuits. Another name kept coming up, Thomas John Ward Jr. His name is listed as a lawyer in 725 patent infringement lawsuits. So, well over 1,000 cases were handled by two very busy lawyers, all in the Eastern District of Texas. It just doesn't seem possible somehow. Then, I started looking to see what judges were handling these cases. And that's when I saw it. Judge Leonard Davis and Judge John Ward? Bo Davis is Judge Leonard Davis's son. Johnny Ward is Judge John Ward's son. The lawyers are the sons of the judges. So, if Judge Leonard Davis and John Ward can encourage more patent trolls to file more lawsuits in the Eastern District of Texas, then their sons are the ones that will rack up the billable hours. Or perhaps a percentage of the take. Now, both Judge Leonard Davis and John Ward have just recently retired, and they've gone to work for the very law firms that represent the patent trolls and their victims. Now that the Eastern District of Texas has been established as a patent trolling haven, the judges are working at the law firms that handle the cases.
The odds of getting a case dismissed early on a Rule 11 motion or on summary judgment, almost impossible. To the point where I think many defendants were counseled by their other outside counsel to not even bother filing those, summary judgment motions because, and the outside counsel again would say things like, you don't want to piss off the judge because he's going to get upset with you for filing this. Why they do it, only they know. It's between them and it's between God, right? But there are judges in East Texas that, they use discretion in certain circumstances that we've become aware of. For example, where someone files a venue transfer motion, if the judge denies the venue transfer motion, there's a pretty darn good case that on appeal, that judge will be overturned by the Fifth Circuit or the Federal Circuit. And so the way that the judge gets around being overturned is he just doesn't rule on it. He just will not rule on the venue transfer motion until right before trial. And judges continue, there's some judges like in East Texas, they continue to refuse to fee shift. They essentially are, in the post-Octane world, half of all fee shifting cases have been granted, fee shifts have been granted. In East Texas, since Octane was issued by the Supreme Court, there have been 0 fee shifts. Until finally it just got so damned egregious, right? It finally got so egregious that people started filing what are called writs of mandamus up to the Fifth Circuit and up to the Federal Circuit. But there are companies, right, that at the end of the day, either because they've been victimized so many times or because the companies have principles, they realize somebody's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. And if we don't do it, if people don't complain and start building up a record of abuse, of this wrongdoing, or abuse, it's not wrong, it's technically not wrong, but certainly abuse, this will just continue forever.
So the judges never toss out patent trolling lawsuits, no matter how ridiculous the claims. The judges never grant your motion for a change of venue, no matter what state you live in. The judges never make the patent troll pay your legal fees, no matter how asinine the lawsuit. The lawyer advises you to not even ask for these things, because it might anger the judge. And this is a venue where I'm being sued? Shakespeare said there's something rotten in Denmark. I say, what the heck is going on in Texas? Armed with the first 55 patent infringement lawsuits I could find in Marshall, Tyler, and Longview, all in the Eastern District of Texas, off I went to the address of every company on that list. First stop, Marshall, Texas. Of course, I imagine Marshall to be a thriving business community. I mean, with all these big tech companies, lawyers, and courts, the airport was sure to be busy and bustling with lots of air traffic. Right? Here's the Wyland office, as far as I can tell. So we can come and see. Why don't we bring the camera around and see what's going on in this office here. This is just a few days after they received $33 million for patents, and this is in the middle of the day on a Thursday. Let's keep going. Here we have Per Diem Co. Per Diem Co. filed a patent infringement lawsuit. Hello? Hello? We'll keep walking. If they come out, we'll go talk to them. This is the office listed for a company called Lodsys. And if anybody wants to travel to Marshall, Texas and see it for themselves, we're at 505 East Travis Street. Lodsys is well known as being one of the biggest patent assertion entities in the world. They sue a lot of people for patent infringement. This is their address. Hello? And they claim to be from Marshall, Texas, where we are now. Let's keep walking. Here we have a company called Packet Intelligence. They have filed 2 lawsuits for patent infringement. Hello? We've been walking up and down these halls for about 25 minutes now looking for anyone, and no one's been here. But a large number of patent infringement lawsuits come out of this hallway. Well, I guess we'll go to the next address.
It's been empty for... We looked at that space because when we moved in here, it's been empty.
No one's in their office today.
No one's in there today. Oh. Maybe knock on the door?
No one's down there.
This is the address used for a lawsuit for patent infringement that QualiCode filed. How about Lake Cherokee Hard Drive? Could we see them?
No, this is just an accounting firm. We do the...
Oh, I see. What about Bluebonnet Telecommunications?
Same thing.
What about Starco LED Technologies?
They're all the same.
Oh, they're not actually
No,
here.
the only entity here is A&G LLP.
Are these companies here?
I mean, I serve as a registered agent for them.
I see.
They are located in East Texas.
Can you say where? When I went up to Suite 1504, I saw a company called Collins Investigations. I said these companies are filing lawsuits that cost $3 million to defend against, and they're all based right here in your office that's about 15 feet wide. What's going on? And he said, well, patents are property just like anything else, and I have no further comment. And that's when they showed me the door and closed the door in my face, and this is the next thing I saw. Baxter Building Law Offices on the door. The address for many, many companies that file patent infringement lawsuits. The Baxter Building Law Offices, 104 East Houston Street. McCool Smith, sounds like a law firm. McCool Smith. Empty, nothing there. Leggett Hagen, whatever that is. East Texas Boot Company. Gotta see who they are. So, we're here at 211 West Tyler. It's an address that a lot of lawsuits come from. There doesn't seem to be anybody here. So this company's been suing Intel, Dell, HP. Yet, as far as what they produce, well, their office is kind of this kind of rundown place, the blackout shades and curtain behind it. When I look up Aloft Media sues 10cause over weather patent. Aloft Media sues SAP over a messaging patent. Aloft Media LLC versus Yahoo. Adobe, Microsoft accused of infringing on browser-related patents. If you're wondering where these patent infringement lawsuits are coming from, if it's from Aloft or Strachan or Azure, this is it. So I guess this is innovation, American innovation. 55 addresses, each one a so-called business that was spewing out nothing but patent infringement lawsuits. Almost every office was deserted, a registered agent, or in one case, a mailbox at a UPS store. But the businesses claimed in the lawsuits did not even exist. And the lawsuits just keep on coming.
The people behind the curtain do not want to be discovered.
You know who they are?
No.
But there has to be some way we can find someone on the inside. Someone that's a real patent troll.
There was the famous case of the scanner troll who sent thousands of letters to small businesses demanding payment for companies that used scan to email.
No, we already know who that guy is. That's Stephen Hill. Next.
There was a patent troll that sent thousands of letters to cafes and hotels and a bakery and funeral parlor demanding payment just for providing Wi-Fi.
I don't know about that one. Let's see. Patent troll says anyone using Wi-Fi infringes on his patent. He won't sue individuals at this stage. The guy behind this? A lawyer named Raymond Nairo. A real-life patent troll in Chicago. I gotta see this for myself.
I am the person that was involved in the whole business of what a patent troll is. Patents are property. They're issued by the government after an examination. And then a court looks at them and says they're good or bad. If I have a patent for Wi-Fi that's specific and is useful and novel, then yeah, it's my property. And if you infringe it, you got to pay me a license fee. But I would want to look more carefully at what somebody's telling you, that they were abused by somebody that sent them a letter and they went out of business because of it, because I'm not buying that. You come to me and say, Mr. Nairo, there are a bunch of people that are using my idea. Can you help me? I say, sure, I'll try to help you license your patent. I go talk to him. I say, listen, you're using this guy's invention. You got to pay him a royalty. No, I'm not going to pay him. What do? I go to you and I say, what do you want to do? I say, I want to stop them. I want them to pay me. They're stealing my property. They came to my house and took my goods. They went on my farm and took my animals. They infringed my patent. They took my property. I say, okay, I'll help you. If it's meritorious, I'll help you. Is there something wrong with that? Is that un-American? Is that wrong? I don't get it. I tell juries in the closing argument, I said, a patent is sort of like having a property and you build a flower patch. My wife loves flowers. I build a flower patch in my front yard. Beautiful flowers. Maybe even I commercialize it, but I don't have to commercialize it. I don't have to have a nursery and sell them. It's beautiful. It's my property. I paid for it. I grow the flowers. And some guy comes along and walks right through it, crushes the flowers, puts a path right down the middle. What am I supposed to say? Oh, that's great. That's okay. You can trespass on my property? No. You say, I don't want you to do that. That's a patent lawsuit. That's patent infringement. You have trespassed on my property, and all I'm asking you to do two things. Stop doing it and pay me for the compensation for replanting the flowers that you just destroyed. Is that bad? Is that evil? Is that wrong? I don't think so. I'd like to have somebody show me the statistics on how often this doomsday scenario that you guys seem to be portraying really happens. How frequently is a company run out of business because of a patent infringement lawsuit? You know what? I'll bet you can't find 100 cases like that. And if you can find 100 cases like that, then let Congress take care of it. But 1,000, 2,000 never happens. Show me the statistics that this type of abusive process has driven 1,000 companies out of business. Show me that. If you can show me that, get the 1,000 people, line them up, and have them sign an affidavit. I was driven out of business because of a patent infringement suit that cost me $3 million. You know what? I don't think you can get 1,000. I don't think you can get 500. I don't even think you can get 100. But I challenge you to do it.
You can't do it because people that are sued are locked up in a non-disclosure agreement. They're not allowed to talk about what happened to them. That's why we can't get 1,000.
Nonsense. They can talk about it.
They were forced to settle because the alternative was to be
Who?
driven out of business.
Who was forced to settle? Who?
The people that signed the non-disclosure
Who are the people? Who are the people? Identify the people. Give me the list. Give me their names. Give me their addresses. Give me the lawsuit. You know what? You can't do it. You know why you can't do it? You bought into the propaganda. You know what? You can't do it. You know why you can't do it? You bought into the propaganda. If McCool Smith and other firms of significance stop taking patent cases, where are the people that have meritorious inventions? Where are they going to go?
Whoa, stop. Time out. McCool Smith. I know that name. Where have I heard that name? That's right. There are McCool Smith signs all over that patent troll hive in Texas that spat out all those lawsuits from those abandoned office buildings. Of course Raymond Nyro knows who McCool Smith is. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that this network of greed was interconnected. And there's something interesting about this address too, by the way. McCool Smith's own office, which we have now confirmed is actually just a patent troll hive, is across the street from the courthouse where the patent troll cases are tried. Where we find Jellyfish Technology of Texas, InMotion LLC, ArcSar LLC, Marshall Feature Recognition LLC, Hopewell Culture, $ Design, Wyland Technologies, Specialized Monitoring Solutions LLC. They're all at 104 East Houston Street. All these companies, they've all filed patent infringement lawsuits, and they're all the exact same address. What is that address? Well, here we are at the courthouse. Look across the street, and we see 104 East Houston Street. If the judges and juries hearing these patent infringement lawsuits wanted to find out what businesses were filing these lawsuits, they would have to walk about 50 yards. The juries would have to walk about 50 yards to see that the lawsuits that they are hearing are coming from abandoned offices across the street. And the lawyers and judges in East Texas are dragging these lawsuits out for years. So Kevin said these people are all corrupt. That is a heck of a charge. But we've seen these trials being held across the street from the patent troll hives that spew out the lawsuits, where the juries would have to walk about 50 yards to see that the businesses filing the lawsuits don't even exist. We've seen the judges that never toss out these lawsuits, no matter how asinine they are, while their sons are racking up the billable hours representing the trolls and their victims. We've seen manufactured victims, clearly empty companies that could not be hurt in any way by the rest of us working for a living. But is it always this way? Could it ever be that a lawyer might actually find someone that believes he's the first person to think of some obvious idea? Well, you remember our friend Mike Skelps? He makes a living by going to marathon races and photographing all the marathon runners. When he's done photographing the race, he uploads each runner's picture to his website so you can look up the pictures by the bib number, the number on the marathon runner. Needless to say, Mike was sued for patent infringement, and the guy that sued him claimed to own the idea of looking up a marathon runner's picture by the number on his chest. Who would take out such a ridiculous patent? Meet Peter Wolf.
The essence of the patent was to allow people to search for their pictures, event pictures of marathon runners or triathletes, to allow them to search by bib numbers using a computer system. Marathon Photos started their business in the mid-70s, so that had been around for a long time. What I came up with in 1999 involved doing it on the internet. It's a method of doing business.
And what is the method?
The method is to allow people to order the pictures online, as opposed to the other method of going through the postal office and sending letters back and forth. The difference is, I'm not sure if I can even explain it. It's more for attorneys to hover over and recognize the difference. I'm fairly lay at this, but so in 2006, when the patent issued, I thought I was home free. I ended up contacting some attorneys and asked them what we could do. They said, well, we can sue them. When we filed a claim against Mr. Skelps, it forced him to hire attorneys here in California, and I used my existing California attorneys to fight the legal battle of proving that he was indeed infringing on the patents. If the patent is presumed valid and they don't adhere by it, they run the risk of being punished. And then my attorney would have to respond, and this gets very legal. And, I had no qualms about it. I felt somewhat sorry for Mr. Skelps. What was his name?
Mike Skelps.
Mike Skelps, yeah, Mr. Skelps.
Why do you feel sorry for him?
Because I think he spent an awful lot of money trying to fight when we could have sat down and resolved these issues rather reasonably.
How reasonably? What do you mean rather reasonably?
I don't want to go into the monetary situation, but I have probably about a dozen licensees, or had a dozen licensees, that just came and we reached a reasonable agreement that did not impose hardship on them in any way. And they simply paid me a small royalty, a reasonable royalty.
Gosh, I just can't imagine the $300,000 settlement offer. A requirement to make the lawsuit stop represents no undue burden on somebody that's making $30,000 a year.
Quite frankly, I think the lawyers that negotiated for me, they were shooting high, willing to settle for a lot less. What Mr. Skelps, now they were putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into this to file all the necessary paperwork. So those lawyers wanted to get something out again. And that's usually the consequence once a lawsuit is filed. Is he a patent attorney? Does he represent the United States Patent Office? Once the Patent Office issues a patent, that patent is presumed valid, okay, unless it is proven invalid. The patent is presumed valid, just like a person is presumed innocent. A patent is presumed valid if it is issued by the United States Patent Office. Who is he to say that it is not valid?
When the patents were overturned, did you return any of the money to the people that had to pay you?
No, typically in a license agreement, you explicitly say that any money that has been paid is non-refundable. The agreements that we wrote involved non-disclosure agreements, and they were also confidential. I have quite a few patents. I wanted to know what makes a good event photograph. Is it important to photograph their entire body, or just the chest up, or get the face. Most people like to see their face. One of the answers that I got was that a good event photograph includes, for runners at least, to show the legs. That's the most important part because they run with the legs. Whereas before, I was taking pictures of the chest and up. So now it became obvious to me that getting their legs in the picture would be of value. We came up with the idea of putting an advertisement into the photograph, branding and advertising into the photograph, and getting paid by the advertiser and giving the pictures away for free to the participants.
Huh. It's fascinating. If you leave out garbage, you're going to get cockroaches. If you leave out garbage patents, you're going to get patent trolls. So, the question we should all be asking is, who keeps approving the garbage patents?
I'm Robert Williams. I'm an attorney, formerly a patent examiner.
How much time does a patent examiner give to a patent?
Okay. The quota that each examiner has to meet under the count system is a certain number of counts per week. An examiner at a high level will only have about 4 hours per each count that they have to get within that quota system.
So, of course, when I hear that, what I hear is an examiner has 4 hours to decide if a patent is valid.
Mm-hmm.
I've currently been in litigation over someone that's suing me for patent infringement now for 3 years. And this 3-year absurdity of a lawsuit was started by somebody that only had 4 hours to pop the patent out of his office with an approval. Doesn't that seem crazy that someone is only allocated 4 hours to approve a patent that could then result in years and years and years of litigation?
I do think that time is one of the challenges that the USPTO is facing in terms of allowing the examiners adequate time to do an in-depth search and to prepare a detailed office action that presents the most salient issues into the record, and first to just identify that best evidence, but also to consider and apply the best available evidence to make that prosecution as short and effective as possible. The examiner is primarily going to look at previous patent applications or previously issued patents. The primary body of knowledge that the patent examiners draw from is actually what's already been patented. The applicant is essentially given the benefit of the doubt that they are in fact the inventor and that their invention is new and not obviousness. And the way the statutes are written, section 102, 103, is that it defaults to a patent being allowed. It says an inventor shall be entitled to a patent. Again, the default position is that it is patentable. Of the IPRs that go through the full process and reach a final decision on the merits, roughly 75% or more were completely invalidated.
So why were they approved in the first place?
The only answer I can give as to why those patents were approved in the first place is because the examiner decided, based on the evidence that was available to him or her at the time, that that application merited being allowed as a patent.
You're going to have to give me for asking here, method of swinging on a swing.
Mm-hmm.
This was approved priority date, November 17, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this one before?
I think this probably is an example of a limitation of the evidence that was available. People may have used that method of swinging on a swing prior to the putative invention date, but there's no documentary evidence of it. And so if you have to act based on evidence and there's no evidence available to contradict it, then legally we're kind of stuck.
So there was no evidence that anyone had swung on a swing sideways before. And since there was no evidence of that, the patent had to be approved.
That's the only conclusion that I can draw, but I don't know specifically what went on during the prosecution of this patent.
In 1999, no one had ever thought of a stick that a dog could fetch before. How could that be approved?
Again, I guess that does seem obvious, certainly applying our common sense test for obviousness. I don't know what evidence the examiner had access to and what was in that record when that application was examined, but apparently the examiner concluded based on that record that it was in fact patentable.
Sorry, Daisy, you can't have it. So apparently you can own an idea, no matter how obvious, if you can just convince the United States Patent Office that it's never been patented before. So let's summarize how patent trolling works. In the movie The Big Short, Margot Robbie, in a bubble bath, apparently naked, explained how the home mortgage fraud was committed by the banks. Now, I'd love to hire her to explain how patent trolling works as well, but I can't afford her. But I did manage to get us a plumber from New Jersey.
Let me tell you how to become a patent troll. First, take out a stupid patent. It don't matter how stupid it is, believe me. 2, form a dummy corporation in East Texas. That's the best place to sue people from. Because the judges are, sympathetic to your cause, if you know what I mean. 3, rent an abandoned office building as an address for your fake business. Let me know. I might be able to help you with that. 4, find victims that are too small to defend themselves, but not too small that they don't have no money. 5, now you sue them. 6, use some dummy name on the lawsuit. You don't want no one to know who you are. Only lawyers need to use the real name. 7, offer an average settlement of, let's say, $340,000. Make sure to call the licensing fee. 8, force your victim to sign a non-disclosure agreement so they can't say what you did to them. 9, just sit back and watch your buddies, the East Texas judges, refuse to toss out the case. Because their sons get to take the cases on both sides. It's perfect. 10, use the money you just made to repeat steps 1 through 9 forever. I'm done.
You've seen how this affects me and many other small business owners all over the world. But how does patent trolling leak into your life? Well, here's a recent patent. It's for a communication device capable of being used for voice communication. Yup, it's a patent for the telephone. And it was approved by the United States Patent Office on August 17 of 2010. Yup, the United States Patent Office approved a patent for the telephone on August 17 of 2010. And here's a little glance at the details of this patent.
Dial. Connected. Send. Over. Disconnect. End.
Yes, that's in the patent. How to use a phone. The patent trolls have now patented how to use a telephone, so they're suing Apple. Here's the lawsuit. Apple accused iPhones are capable of being used for voice communication. Apple's accused iPhones have 2 cameras. Apple's accused iPhones have a camera and a display on the same side of the phone. Apple's accused iPhones have a camera located on the side of the iPhone that is opposite the display. Apple's accused iPhone is capable of displaying its location on its display. Apple's accused iPhones are wireless communication devices. The 664 patent is presumed valid. So now, of course, Apple's having to pay huge legal costs in defending themselves in court. Fees, obviously, that are passed on to you and me every time we buy an iPhone. No wonder these Apple devices are so expensive. We're paying off the patent trolls.
But I have a Samsung Galaxy.
Oh, John. They're suing Samsung, too.
Huh.
Of course they're suing Samsung. Of course they're suing all of us. They're patent trolls. Now, who would file such an asinine lawsuit? Well, in this case, it's a company called Corey Doris Technologies, LLC. You already know they're a shell company designed to hide whoever's behind it. But every lawsuit lists the lawyers that are filing it, so the victims can call the lawyers to offer their settlement. We can find out who the lawyers are every time. So, what lawyers would ever press such a case against, effectively, all of us? The answer is, these lawyers. These ones right here. And notice, they're all from Texas. What a coincidence. So, these people are effectively suing all of us for using cell phones. I had to give them a call and ask why.
This is Betty.
Yeah, Elizabeth DeRue, please.
It's me.
Hey, this is Austin Meyer speaking. I am looking at a lawsuit of Corey Doris Technologies versus Apple, where apparently Corey Doris claims to own the idea of a communications device capable of being used for voice communication. Am I understanding that right? Does Corey Doris own the patent for a communications device capable of being used for voice communication?
I represent Corey Doris in that matter, and I'm not sure, like, are you connected with Corey Doris in some way? I just have not met you.
I'm not connected with Corey Doris, no.
Okay.
So does Corey Doris own the idea of using a device capable of being used for voice communication?
Corey Doris owns the patent that's asserted in the litigation, yes.
And does that patent claim to own a device capable of being used for voice communication as stated in your lawsuit, paragraph 16?
I'm just not sure what you're asking me.
I'm asking what I'm asking. Well, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to be more clear about my question, certainly. I'm asking if Corey Doris owns the idea of a device being used for voice communication. Because that's what you state in your lawsuit with your signature at the bottom. And so I'm wondering if you actually believe that.
I'm happy to call you back at a time when I have a little more time to discuss this.
So right now you're not able to tell me whether this company owns...
I mean, I don't even know who you are, and I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. If you're just reading the complaint, I don't have that file in front of me.
I am reading the
If you're
complaint,
just reading the complaint,
yes.
The answer is that the matters asserted in the complaint are accurate to the best of my knowledge at this time. The language in the complaint is accurate.
Polasek with Marion Arrington.
Yes, John Polasek, please.
May I have your name?
Sure, Austin Meyer.
Please hold.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mr. Meyer. May I ask what this call is in regards to?
Yes, this is with regards to patent infringement suit between Corey Doris and Apple Computer.
Okay. Well, Mr. Polasek is not in. Would you like to leave a message for him?
Hello?
Yeah, Otis Carroll, please.
This is he.
Hi, this is Austin Meyer speaking. I'm looking at a lawsuit filed against Apple Computer, a patent infringement lawsuit, on behalf of a company called Corey Doris Technologies, LLC. And I notice in this lawsuit that you claim that Corey Doris, LLC, owns the idea of a communication device that is capable of being used for voice communication. Or at least so it would seem by my reading of the lawsuit. Am I misunderstanding something about that lawsuit?
You know what? You may not be, but you're talking to the wrong guy. You need to call the patent lawyer who's involved in it.
I need to call who? I'm sorry?
You need to call. There's another lawyer listed. One of the patent lawyers. Give him a call.
John Polasek?
Yeah, give him a call.
I'm just curious, why is your name on the lawsuit if you're not the right person to talk to about said lawsuit?
Well, you know what? I don't have any reason to talk to you right now.
Okay, I think everyone in the room understands patent trolling now. But does the federal government understand it?
When someone asserts a claim that's not valid, that's called patent trolling. And when they do that, they are threatening a business, usually a business, sometimes it's an individual, with enormous costs. Litigation costs, costs of having to pay damages in the claim. Then what they're effectively doing is keeping good products from getting to the marketplace, extorting money from legitimate businesses, and stifling new startup businesses.
Okay, so they know about it. Good.
Well, it takes a lot of things for a bill to become a law. And so even though this got the overwhelming support of the House and was voted very strongly out of there, it never made it out of committee in the Senate side because Harry Reid purportedly said over my dead body that this would be actually discussed, and that was because of his support from the trial lawyers.
Okay.
That might be really good footage. Yeah.
It makes you want to strangle Harry Reid.
Yeah. I mean, you can say reportedly. I don't know if that.
You said reportedly.
I did. Okay. All right. Good.
Oh, so close. They know about patent trolling, but they just don't care. They're siding with the trial lawyers and hanging the rest of us out to dry. Of course, most lawmakers are lawyers, so maybe that shouldn't have surprised me at all.
So many software developers out there who have been shut down, their apps have been pulled off the stores, their websites have been shut down, or they simply settle and they pay, and they're just lining the pockets of these patent holders who aren't really doing anything with that intellectual property. So I think it's just like it's an extra tax on our skill, on our craft.
And is the tax decided by the government and the voters?
No,
Who decides the tax?
the lawyers.
Everyone should be concerned about this. This is an $80 billion tax, right? Because they sue everybody. And at the end of the day, all these costs show up in two forms. One, good companies go out of business because they can't afford it, so the consumer misses some great product or service. Or it gets passed on and increased cost of goods, so it's gonna cost the consumer at the end of the day. Who's getting rich? Once again, it's the lawyers.
Imagine if you wrote a book and we had patents on books, and you had one guy who got the patent to write books about whales, and he was the only guy, and then you wanted to write a book about whales. You'd have to go to Fred, who has the patent on whales, and get his permission, maybe a license agreement, so that you too could write about that topic. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? Well, that's exactly what's going on in software today. That's how ridiculous it is. And that's why it needs to be fixed.
Why don't we make software copyrightable instead of patentable? And if we did that, I think that would be a huge step forward.
I'm sorry, but anytime I see a method of accomplishing blah, 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 that scares the hell out of me. It really, really does. Because that's not patenting a physical device. Like this microphone that's in front of me, that is a physical design that does a specific thing. That, I believe, is patentable. But the method of accomplishing a task is ridiculous to me. But there's so many of those method patents that are out there now that you can't even run a simple website without getting popped.
It hurts innovation in a very, very tangible and real sense, because when a startup, and there are numerous stories of startups basically in the app space, or people who simply just produce podcasts, right, getting the threat letters saying we will sue you because of, for example, not because you produced a podcast, but because of the way you're loading it onto Apple iTunes or something like that, something stupid like that.
Can you imagine the world we've been in right now if Steve Jobs, right out of college, was slammed with an IP case that he couldn't get out of?
If Newegg software coders had gotten this legal letter in 2001 saying if you program a shopping cart, you have to give us 1% of your revenue forever, right? Newegg wouldn't exist today, right? What a complete joke.
If we had gotten our lawsuit the same day we launched, we would have had to shut down immediately. That would have been it. I would have been really angry about it, but I would have had no resources to fight it at that point, or no idea whether or not I infringed, and so we would have just walked away.
So the cost of this abuse is literally incalculable.
There are certain areas that are notoriously patent troll bait. And I've had people say, I'm not going to create a business there because there are too many patent trolls. That's a loss for society. That's a loss for the country.
It's hampering innovation because people are afraid to write software because, boy, somebody else must have some similar idea to that. And sure enough, you can almost guarantee that there is some patent somewhere that somehow any piece of software is going to infringe on.
Yeah, it's absolutely impossible to tell if you're about to be sued for patent infringement.
Why not start all over? Just write a new app right now.
Wow. I would love to write a new app. I really would. But there's also the fear of being sued again by something else. I feel that the risk is too great for a small guy like me with no venture backing, with no money in the bank, to just try to start all over again.
This is not what the American dream is all about. This is not why people start companies. This is not the kind of attitude that makes people want to go build new things.
That's the challenge that entrepreneurs face.
And I thought the American dream was something much different than that.
It just baffles me that this industry exists, it's allowed to exist, and that we have agencies, government agencies, that get fat off it. Someone needs to bring it down.
And now, here's how you fix it. This is so easy to fix, it's ridiculous. First of all, no more method patents. Method patents are stupid. It's just somebody writing down the steps he takes to do something. No more software patents. We have copyright for software. You don't need to patent the whole damn idea. No more 20-year duration. Patents last 20 years because it took 20 years to recoup your investment in the Steam age. Does it take 20 years for a product to go through its life cycle today? It's ridiculous. Patents should obviously last about 5 years at the most. You should file your lawsuits in the defendant's district, not East Texas. You want to go sue someone? Fine, go sue him. Don't drag him to your abandoned office building in Texas. Trolls should reveal who they are, not hide behind dummy corporations. How do you justify suing somebody when you're afraid to even let anybody know who you are? Don't sue someone just for using technology. Sue the person that claims to have invented it. You can't just sue everyone that uses the Google store. Don't sue someone if you make more money suing people than making things. Of course, that just sets the stage for patent trolls. Do all these things now and we'll solve the patent trolling problem for the future. It's a snap. And none of these things will cost any money to do. In fact, it'll save taxpayer dollars because we won't have all these expensive lawsuits gumming up the federal court system. We don't have to throw money at this problem. We just have to close the loopholes that the government left open. That's it.